All right, guys, thanks for joining me. I know I'm a couple minutes late, but I am glad to be here. Let's talk about this game. The Florida Gators take on the Charlotte 49ers in the Swamp this weekend. 7 p.m. kick in front of another sold out crowd. Second weekend in a row, and I believe it's been 14 years since we've sold out a non-Power 5 team. So that is pretty impressive. I think everybody's riding that Tennessee high a little bit. UF is a 28-point favorite. The over-under is 48.5, meaning we have an implied score of something like 38-10, according to Vegas. ESPN gives the Gators a 95% chance to win the game, and for all intents and purposes, this one should be one that the Gators can run away with. All that said, there have been some worrisome statements coming out of UF from Billy Napier about practice and focus. We're going to talk about that here in a moment. But first, we have a special guest tonight from High Top Sports. Sheldon is coming to hang out with us. Thank you for joining me. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing fantastic. Excited to be here. Excited to be on the show and talk some Florida ball.
I always love hanging out with you, so this is good. Okay.
Same.
I want to ask you about it because I think it's important in setting up this Charlotte game. It was a ton of fun, but what was your biggest takeaway from the Tennessee game?
I just think the passion from the guys. We talked to Tyreek Sapp last night on the show, and I felt like they found each other. I think they found a rhythm amongst each other, and that was the biggest thing for me. Just being there, and then again talking to them, and then watching all the videos that have came out since then. The culture that we've been kind of beating the drum about on the offseason, and you can kind of see what Billy has been talking about in his press conference, what he's trying to build, seems that it's finally starting to click. And he even talked in his press conference, like, look, this team isn't last year's team. And I brought that up because it was the first time that, in a sense, I feel like he took a jab, right? Typically, Billy kind of floats around. He plays the politician angle of things, and he just doesn't really give you an answer. But for him to say, look, the last team couldn't handle momentum. This team can. And I think just what the noise that came out from Wednesday's practice with Cam Jackson saying, just kind of getting on the guys of, hey, like this is serious. This can't be screwing off just because it is Charlotte. I didn't know they were 49ers until you said that either.
See, learning things on this program.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think that UF has things more figured out, or are you still kind of in wait and see mode? I mean, I think last year we all got super hyped after Billy came out and beat Utah week 1, and then, we were a little bit let down, 2 games later. So, do you think that the Tennessee game is similar to that last year, or are we starting to get the ball rolling?
I think the difference is that we face the adversity first. Last year we had a taste of victory and then had to go and face adversity in a game against Kentucky, which I felt that we shouldn't have lost, but we beat ourselves. And I think, and Sapp said it last night too. He said, look, this team isn't as talented as that team last year. I think that team, and not in a negative way, but had egos in the sense that, look, those guys, there were some of those guys that knew they were better and didn't necessarily click and play as one. And Sapp says, look, we're playing all as one. And I think when you have that realization, like, we don't have the same talent that we have. We have to play together to be successful. Your back's almost against the wall that there is no other option. I can't go out there and have this ego about me when I go out there. That's the pro of having a young team that everyone, I believe, is bought in. And they use their terminology, brainwash. Kirby had kind of used that a lot last year. They used that about talking about Georgia's team. But I think there's a pro to that of just having everybody convinced that, look, we need each other. We've talked about it before with the psychology with Urban, what he did back in the early 2000s. So I believe it is different. The other pro is that it is young, or negative, I guess the con is that it is a young team. So that does concern me that, look, you could still get caught behind your back foot a little bit and trip up because of the youth that is on the football team. So that does frighten me a little bit. But yeah, I think we're heading in the right direction. I've been bought in the whole time that we've been headed in the right direction. Even with the ups and downs last year, I felt that the SEC was at its strongest that it's been in a long time from top to bottom.
Yeah.
I think Tennessee obviously had its lightning in the bottle season. I think Kentucky was much better. I think Vandy had a little bit of a flow. We lost that. We shouldn't have lost that game. I'm not making excuses for that. But I think right now the door's a little open for us. And that's what I love about college football. You just got to see that you can win. And once you believe that you can win, it doesn't really matter what anybody else says or what the numbers say. If you believe you can get it done, you'll get it done.
So you mentioned youth, and obviously this is an incredibly young team. I think there's one senior on the 2 deep, which is just astounding and bodes well for the future. But it is worrisome sometimes. And I think Coach Napier, he came out this week and he said, there's a mindset we're trying to develop here. We're trying to get where we can be consistent and not dependent on external things to motivate us. And that's an attitude, that's a culture, and we're working on that. I think we've been a little inconsistent in that this week, in my opinion. So we have a lot of work left to do to get ready to play for Saturday. So, the good news is the team we're playing on Saturday is Charlotte, as opposed to Kentucky or LSU or Georgia or something like that. But are you a little bit worried about the things that have come out at practice? It is totally youth-based, and I think something to be expected, but also something that does have to be overcome.
Yeah, it's in a weird way when I saw that it happened. I'm not upset about it. I think it's inevitable that it's going to happen. I think things get out a lot more than what they used to. I loved the fact that it was handled from Cam Jackson. Even watching that, there's a video that just dropped like literally 30 minutes ago. The kind of like their little inside story season shows that they do, and just watching Cam Jackson, the way that he controls himself and how he carries the room. Tyreek Sapp, those guys still seem to be bought in. You're gonna have the young guys that are gonna be kind of popping off a little bit. But I don't know. I feel like even Sapp talked about it last night that Billy is kind of allowing a little more swagger, a little more of the players to be themselves. So I think you're finding yourselves in this weird transition where, look, I'm trying to let the reins off a little bit. I'm trying to let you guys play. And that's kind of what we're seeing. So if there's a week for it to happen, I'm okay for it this week.
Yeah.
That Utah at noon scares me a little bit because that outside motivation that he's talking about going into enemy territory at noon, there is no, except wanting to win, but you don't have the crowd that has been juicing you up for the last 3 weeks after that game.
Yeah. And,
game.
I think Steve Harris actually talked about it a little bit this week. He was saying that at halftime when he was in the locker room that they were like, really going nuts, kind of pumping the guys up. And at first Napier was like, whoa, don't gas them up. We haven't won anything yet. And then he was like, no, we're trying to get them to stay hyped. We're not telling them they're great. We're telling them you got to continue to do well. So it's interesting to hear kind of like the inside perspectives, because I do think Napier is really wary and wants to make sure that he controls I don't even know if ego is the right word, but like you get a taste of victory and then you're like, damn, we are good. And he doesn't want them to say, damn, we're good yet, because they've won one game that matters so far this season. But,
Sure.
On Charlotte, obviously they are not at UF's level at all, but one of the hardest things to do in college football is get up for a game when you're a big favorite, especially when you won a game as massively emotional as Tennessee was. So if you're Napier, how do you prepare your team for this game? How do you make sure that they are still up, even though it's an inferior opponent?
Yeah, we talked about it in sales, kind of this like the alley cat mentality, right? When you're back in the alley and you're starving cat, you're always hungry. It doesn't matter what it is. If someone tosses it on the alley, you're going to attack it. And I think you have to figure out how do you maintain that mentality. We talk about it in sales that when the good leads start coming through, it's very easy to get fat and happy. Yeah. And how do you, again, keep that mentality? That's all. It's sales and these things are all, life's kind of the same way. It's very easy to get complacent. Yeah. So how do you manage that? That's been the big question for Kirby and Georgia as well. It's going to be tough, but I think, again, it's just keeping things in check and understanding that, look, there was things that we could still get better at, and that should be the exciting part for these guys. It's like, it's not just beating Tennessee. It's not just beating Charlotte. Let's go do something, right? Let's go beat Kentucky. Let's go shock. Jason said it, we're going to shock the world. We'll shock the world. By shocking the world, we'll be by coming in and kicking ass in every single game, regardless of who we're playing. And again, I think he's going to find himself, and I like it. It's a good test. It's a good, how he can bounce back. We had a little bit of a gauntlet. I called it last year with Utah, Kentucky, then USF, a cupcake game, followed by Tennessee. It's a little backwards, a little bit, where it favors us. I feel like we have a little more of easiness with the two, McNeese State and Charlotte.
Yeah.
But this game it's an important game to, again, the same way they looked at McNeese State. That was a bounce back game for them from Utah, but also how do we get ready for Tennessee? This is your last game until your gauntlet starts, because after this, it's showtime. Yeah. So this is your last real orange and blue game, if you want to call it your scrimmage. No disrespect to the 49ers, but you know what I mean? So it's going to be tough. That's why I don't get paid the big bucks for this.
We thought USF was going to be a tune-up last season, and then that ended up being a nail-biter. So hopefully we show up.
I don't think it's going to be the same level of talent there, but the USF isn't quite Charlotte. But
I
yes, it
mean,
was the
when
nail.
we struggled, that was a,
Hey, Bama did too. Bama did too last week. So take it easy. Take
they
it.
did struggle. All right, Charlotte is 1-2. They beat South Carolina State 24-3, but then they lost to Maryland and Georgia State in games that were not especially close. They have used two quarterbacks this season, kind of mixed results on that. Jalen Jones is a dual threat quarterback, and then Ivy is a little bit more of a traditional pocket passer. Jones leads the team in rushing, but neither quarterback has been stellar this year. What are you looking at for this defensive line? What do you think they can accomplish on Saturday? Is there like a little bit of a measuring stick you're looking for in terms of growth you want to see out of them? I personally would love to see them in the backfield more consistently.
Yes. Yep. More sacks for sure. I think this is a line that they should be able to dominate. And look, I know people love the stat, to pad the stats and look those numbers up. I don't think last week it benefited. I think they played it perfectly side to side with the ability of Joe Milton to run. That might play a little factor this week with the quarterback. But yeah, you want to see them bust through this line and really show their dominance and show their physicality, again, just to get some momentum going into next week. They've done a great job of blocking the holes and filling up the gaps and stopping the run. But yeah, like you said, let's power through. Let's test another a level here, another tool in the toolbox, as Armstrong refers to. What's another tool belt that we can use in this game here?
Okay, so they have some talented wide receivers too, or I guess this is going to sound terrible, but talented for Charlotte.
Sure.
Jack Hesterg is their go-to. He's got 14 catches, nearly 200 yards, on the season so far, which is more than double any other wide receiver on their roster. What are you looking for out of UF's young DBs here? I feel like they, really starting to come into their own. Castleton especially has obviously been out of this world, but Napier has kind of shown us that he is such a good evaluator of talent. These young guys are coming in and they're ready to play now, which is pretty crazy.
Sure.
But there's also lots of room for growth, though. What are you looking for?
Jakeem Jackson, he had a great game at McNeese State. He showed a lot of poise and a lot of just growth in that game. I was excited to see him play. They put him in the big time against Tennessee. He had that big play where they scored. He was set up a pick. He got picked, I believe, during that play. But all in all, he had his head down low. Castell came and picked his head back up. This will be a big bounce back game for him. I think he's an incredible cornerback. Castell has really found himself to be a leader. And I think it'll speak to him is, again, you showed out at the most important time possible. Now, can you maintain that going into this as a freshman and still kind of poise that leadership role, which is not getting too ahead of yourself and not getting too big and not getting lazy just because that it is Charlotte. So excited to see how they'll play. Devin Moore as well. I think he's been getting some more time. I think he had the pick on Joe Milton, if I'm not mistaken. So it'll be good to see him get some more time. Yeah, I think the cornerback play, they've done a great job of rotating out. I kind of mentioned this about the linebacker room. The linebacker room had a lot of quantity. We didn't know about the quality. I think the quality has definitely answered the buck with Scooby and Shamar. I think there's no question marks there. Cornerback, I feel like we've got a lot of options. Now we're trying to figure out who's going to be the best guy. Who's going to be our go-to guy. In basketball, you'll watch, right? There's great teams, but even when it comes down to the wire, you need somebody who's going to step up in the big moment. And Castell did that a few times. So I would like to see somebody in the cornerback role. It's like, hey, I know if the ball's going him deep in the late time game, he's going to step up and be that guy.
So UF should be able to move the ball well on Charlotte. They rank 119th in the nation out of 133 teams. That's according to ESPN's SP plus minus, which is opponent adjusted, obviously. So if we're locked in, we should be able to put up quite a few points this weekend. One of the things Napier said after Tennessee is he felt like he got too conservative in the second half and that was, his bad, essentially. So we have this stellar running game, but would you rather see us see what we have wide receiver wise? Would you rather us test Mertz a little bit, or do you want to save all of that for Kentucky?
That's just a tough question. I mean, obviously, as a fan, you always want to see the buckle come off and let it ride. Utah, we kind of got a taste of it. I would like to see Mizell get a couple tosses. Andy Jean, obviously, we've been asking for him, especially. I think Eugene's going to be out for sure. I think he might be able to play, but I think he's already left off the depth chart, so he won't play. I like to see Bordenham get a.
Why?
Yeah, there's no point. Obviously, Boardingham get a few passes as well. So, look, I mean, honestly, just keep doing your system. Don't try to go to do anything spectacular. I think if you try to go outside of your realm, you're just basically showing that you're listening, you're caring what everybody else thinks. That's not their play style. That's not how they execute. Just go do what you did against McNeese State. If you need to pass it. Cool. If you want to run it on the throat, fantastic. That line still needs work. It still needs to work on the run block. It needs to work on the pass block. So go in as a normal game plan. Treat it like a normal game. I think if you go in there and try to do too much, you're going to throw off the rhythm going into Kentucky, right? Because once you get into Kentucky, what's the game plan? What do you plan on doing? 60-40, 60 run, 40 pass, 70-30? Well, if that's going to be your play style, and if we need to adjust to 60-40, we will, then that's what you need to practice for Charlotte. I don't care about putting it 55. I wanted it for McNeese State. Yeah. I don't care. I don't need to see it anymore. You proved to me, hey, here's the type of team that we're going to run, defense heavy, and control the ball, especially with that clock now. You don't need to score 85 points in 30 seconds. I know Oklahoma and those guys do over there in the Pac-12 and the Big 12, but that's just their style. So...
All right, we're going to give away some stuff in a minute and make some predictions. But first and foremost, Prize Picks, guys. You need to get on this app. Sheldon, I don't know if you're on this app, but I know all of you guys try to make money on the NFL and college football. Prize Picks is a daily fantasy game where you select entries based on player projections. So for each player, you either pick more or less than what they are projected to do by the app. So this weekend, if Mertz is projected at 255 and a half passing yards, if you like him to get more, select that. If Ricky Pearsall is projected at 78 and a half receiving yards, you can pair your players and boom, go make money. Use code PEAK, that's PEEK, for a 100% deposit match up to $100. Prize Pick is a ton of fun. Go check them out today. They are the best way to get in on the action in states like Florida, Georgia, Texas, California, and over 70% of the United States. So, Shelton, well, I've got you on. Let's do some picks for the slate this weekend. There are some insane games. All right. I am super pumped for all of the games that are on Saturday, not just ours. Florida State, 2.5 against Clemson. What do you think? Do you like the Noles? Do you think Clemson pulls something out at home? 2.5 is, that's a pretty close game right there.
Yeah, on our show we did this, and I said if I pick Florida State, it's a win-win because I get my point for our pick'em tournament. But if Clemson wins, I win either way.
Right.
I feel like the 2.5 is a little disrespectful to Florida State. To be honest with you, I don't think Clemson's shown us enough.
Right.
I just don't think it's enough. If it was 7, I would probably go with Clemson. But I got to go with FSU. Unfortunately, it kills me. But just if it's betting, it's gambling. I got to be smart here. You got to be smart here. I'm going to go with FSU. I think it's disrespectful to FSU. I think it should be a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I think FSU has shown. I mean, this last weekend they obviously it wasn't their best performance, but I think overall they've shown they are one of the best teams in the country. So Clemson has not shown us that. So I'll take Florida State too. All right, so this is an interesting one, and I'm pretty sure it's why I am still tired going on Thursday from this weekend. Colorado, I'm sure you were too, up till 2:30 in the morning watching the end of that game. But they are a 21-point dog to Oregon. And, I mean, Colorado has shown us some stuff this season. Is that disrespectful to Colorado?
A little bit. I think Oregon should win pretty comfortably. I think even with the clock new rules, I think 21 is a lot to cover. I mean, Georgia hasn't covered at all this season. Florida didn't cover against McNeese State. The only thing that's been able to cover those big spreads is Oklahoma. Michigan hasn't covered either. That doesn't mean they're a bad team. It's just it doesn't really fit their style.
Yeah.
I think 21's a lot of points. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. Take the over, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But 21's a lot. Maybe 14. I don't know. I got to take on the points. I've got to take Colorado. I'm 2-1 with them. The Colorado State game, they kind of butchered me there, but I got to take Colorado. I don't think it's disrespectful. I kind of get it, but I think it's a little too much.
All right. What about UCLA at Utah? Utah is favored by 6.
Oh, it's moved. It was 4.5 on our line. Okay, 6 points.
Well, this is my
that's
here. So if he's wrong, I'm blaming him. But
yeah, it changes. So it's different anywhere you go. You got to go get the best. I hate picking Utah, but UCLA, I think they're riding the high off of last year, kind of what Tennessee was this year. I think Utah, I mean, again, I think just what Whittingham was able to do out there. Six is a lot, though. They struggled against Baylor, which is really concerning me. That's what's really frustrating me here. And UCLA can put up a lot. I'm going to take UCLA with the 6 points. That
So,
changes things.
the little birdie in my ear here says that the reason the line moved is because Cam Rising is playing.
Oh,
So
he is.
he is. So I'm going to give you that information before I make you lock this in.
Oh, yeah. Okay, because that was partly my reason of, again, that 2-quarterback system. I think if Cam plays and they have I can't think of the Johnson, I think they're going to do a little Chris Leak, Tim Tebow-esque. I'm not comparing Johnson to Tim Tebow, but just his ability to run. Yeah. I think they'll continue to use that. Barnes just doesn't give them the same explosiveness that Cam does. I like Utah then by -6. That's huge. I didn't realize he was playing. I like that a lot.
I'm taking Utah as well. All right, so the biggest SEC game of the day probably is Ole Miss at Alabama. Alabama's favored by 6.5. Lane Kiffin has been killing me with all of his tweets from his dog's account this week. He is college football gold. We must put him in a bubble and protect him for always because he is so good for this sport. I love it so much. Does he figure out a way to beat Grandpa?
Yes, I think the time is done for Saban. I've been beating this drum for a year and a half now, and it's respect to Saban. I think this is the game. Lane's got to figure it out. The West is open for his taking. They haven't been there. They tied in 2003 with LSU. Heard that stat today, but LSU won the tiebreaker. It is their chance to get it done. I know it's in Alabama. For the fact that Bama's favored by 6.5. They haven't played horribly, but they struggled. They don't know who's playing quarterback. It's a lot of question marks out there, and it's been a downhill slope for the last 3 years, while Lane Kiffin and the Huddy Tuddies and the Sips have been on the up and up, and they're at their peak right now, and they've got to get it done.
Did we ever think that we'd be sitting here and thinking that, Saban's time might be done? Like that just... I don't know. That kind of hurts my heart a little bit. I'm not ready to pick.
I prayed for it for years.
I love Saban. I'm not ready to pick against him. So I think Alabama covers this weekend. But
I love it.
This is going to be such a fun one to watch. And I would love to know what Saban's opinion is of Kiffin now, because, Lane is just so out there. So in your face, calls him grandpa, all these things. I hope somebody gets the balls to ask Saban, because inquiring minds need to know.
I love that you picked him. I love it. I think it's great.
Listen,
it's hard.
Saban. I can't. I can't pitch. Not yet. I don't know.
It's hard. Look, I love Saban as well too, and it feels weird, right? Because this seems typically is a game that, if it's down for Bama or whatever, Bama's like, "Yep, we got this," and you pick Bama with your eyes closed. Yeah. I don't know. I think the portal's changed some things.
Did we ever think we'd be in a situation where Alabama fans would want Graham Mertz as their quarterback? Because I feel like we're there.
Try to tell him Heismertz. Nobody wanted to believe me. You know what I'm saying? I let him know.
You had him know. All right. What about Ohio State at Notre Dame? Ohio State's favored by 3.
Yeah, just mind-blowing to me. Give me the Irish. I picked the Irish before the season even started to win this game, so I'm not sold on Ohio State. I think Ryan Day is a fraud, and I think his time is short as well, too. Yeah.
I don't think Ohio State looks great. Every time I have ever picked Notre Dame, they have let me down. I cannot pick Notre Dame because they're just not reliable for me. So I'm going to go with Ohio State. Maybe, if Notre Dame wins,
Chip Kelly's not there anymore.
That makes me happy, but I feel like I just can't count on Notre Dame to do me any favors ever.
Brian Kelly's not there anymore.
That's true.
It's a new world.
That is true. He picked up that accent and moved to Baton Rouge. All right. What about a score prediction for us? UF is favored by 28.
I feel like our spread was bigger for McNeese State. Is Charlotte better than McNeese State?
I wanted to say ours was like 26.5 for that, but I'm not sure. But I
thought it was like 41 because we tied it. It was like 49.
You're right. Right, it was bigger, and you're right. It was bigger. I don't know. Maybe Charlotte's better. I'm pretty sure it's like, toss.
I like the UF covers here. Yeah, 100%. I think that's going to kind of be Billy's response to like, hey, we're going to dominate. We may not put up 50 points, but it should be 35-0 because that defense, I don't think is going to let anybody through. I think he's still upset that McNeese scored that 7 points 2 weeks ago. He wanted a shutout then. I think he's going to get a shutout now.
Well, I wanted a shutout then too. So do you have a score?
Yeah, we all did. Oh, a score prediction. Yeah, I was thinking I think 35-42. 0. I don't think that. Maybe 3. But I don't think let's show them get anything. Yeah. Watch pop off the first one. Go up 7-0.
All right. I got to think because I'll make mine at the end here. And I got to not do the same thing as you. So let's think. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. This was so much fun. Tell everybody where they can find you and listen to High Top Sports and all the cool things that you guys are into.
Yes, once you guys are finished watching Allie, please come over and watch High Top Sports. We're High Top Sports on YouTube and on Twitter. And Allie comes on the show as well. The show is much better when she's on. So if you only want to watch when she's on, totally understandable. But we had an interview with Tyreek Sapon last night. But if anything, go watch that because that is absolutely incredible just to hear him talk about his love for the game, his love for this team, and the love for the orange and blue. So if you haven't watched anything, just go listen to Tyreek Sapp. That's incredible. But I appreciate you having me, Allie. This has been an absolute blast. Thanks for asking me. I guess everyone else said no. So I love it. I thank you.
Only asked. This was perfect. And I appreciate you. We're definitely going to have to do it again.
Yes, absolutely. Go Gators.
All right. Go Gators. All right. Let's talk about what I want to see out of UF on Saturday. And then I will give a score prediction. But first, listen, if you are all going to the Swamp this weekend, you need to stop by the Melton Law tent. I went back there last weekend. It was awesome. There was a line, down in front of the O'Connell Center. They've got a prize wheel. They were giving away a bunch of really cool stuff. There was music playing. It is right in front of the O'Connell Center, in front of the stadium as well, though. So it's just craziness going down Gail Lemerin. There is so much going on. You want to be there. It is really fun, right in the heart of all the action. So go see Melton Law's tent, spin the wheel, win some prizes, tell them I said hi. Definitely don't miss it. Melton Law is the official injury firm of the Florida Gators, and they should be your official injury firm as well. If you are hurt or injured in an accident, let Melton Law be the one who takes care of you in your time of need. All right, so let's talk about what I want to see out of UF this weekend. We talked about it a lot with Sheldon, but first and foremost, I want to see what the focus and the mindset is of this team. He said it. They are a young team. Napier has talked about the fact that he doesn't think they practiced well this week. It's hard to stay focused when you get that big win. It's hard to not get an ego. It's hard to not, let your head get too big. So how focused is this team? What is the mindset? Are they still hungry? Are they going out there for blood? That's what I want to see. Next up, I know I sound like a broken record, but special teams. I need to see some improvement on special teams. Is this something that we practiced hard this week? Was this a focus? Are we continuing to improve? Trey Smack took over field goal kicking duties last week. Is that still the same moving forward? I want to know that they are putting in the work here. And then Graham Mertz, is he going to open it up a little bit? I think he has the ability to. We haven't really seen it a whole lot. Second half last week, they kind of shut it down. He had some minor hand injuries that there's just no reason to gamble with. And Florida already had the game kind of comfortably at hand. I'm a little bit torn as to how this goes this week. Does Florida show as little as possible because they want to keep all their tricks in the bag for the games down the road? Or do they allow these young guys kind of the opportunity to catch some balls and see what Graham Mertz has under, minimal pressure? I don't know, but I would be interested in seeing them open it up a little bit. I also would love for this team to get out healthy. This is not a big game. This is a game where Florida's favored, largely, and it's 95% going to be a victory, right? You got to play the games. You can't say it's 100%, but this should be what we would refer to as a gimme game. So do we get out healthy? And I want to see that there is no lapses in pre-snap stuff, procedural stuff. I want to see the offensive line play as one. I want to make sure that Florida continues to be penalty-free or as close to it. They had some really costly ones against Utah. They've cleaned it up since then. I want to see that continues. And I don't want us to get our foot off the gas if we get a big lead. I think that Napier talked about it in his press conference after Tennessee. He probably went too conservative the second half. And I do think some of that has to do with the fact that Wilson was banged up. Graham Mertz's hands were banged up. So why? Don't risk it. But don't take your foot off the gas. I want a blowout. And I want to see the fans stay the whole game. Florida's more than likely going to get up early and they're going to keep the lead. Don't leave your seat. These players want to feel the juice. They want to see the energy. It's a night game. It's a sellout. Let's continue that energy for 60 minutes. Okay, just before I give my prediction, we have a winner for Devil Dogs Coffee, the giveaway that we did 2 weeks ago. It is a Twitter handle is @GatorSwamper. Guys, Devil Dogs Brews and Beans is the best premium coffee. It is veteran owned. It is so delicious. It is fresh. They use high quality stuff. We use it in our house. I'm actually about to place another order tonight because I need more pumpkin spice. So I will make sure that information, I share it on Twitter. You guys can use the QR code and check out Devil Dog Brews and Beans. It is gonna change your morning for sure. They have free shipping for all U.S. orders. 5% of all orders are donated to the Wounded Warrior Project, which I think is really cool. There are 50 different blends and flavors to choose from. They have K-Cups. They even have 10-pound bags and everything in between. So I will make sure you get that QR code, and @GatorSwamper, you got a 2-pound bag coming your way. I will message you and we will figure that out. There's going to be a link in the description of this video as well. All right, guys, time for a score prediction. I think that the Gators win 48-3. Okay? I think that I don't think we get the shutout, even though I would absolutely love that. But I'm guessing the 3 points is going to come in cleanup time. So I'm also okay if that happens when it's third string guys. Let's get some experience for our younger guys in there. And I think we head into Kentucky 3-1. And that's a big week next week for sure. All right. The last thing I want to do before I get out of here, I have 2 tickets to give away to the first person that tweets to me that they want him. Captain Robert sent me his 2 tickets. He said he can't make it. He's from Texas. He wants a Gator fan that's going to get in the stands to use them. He doesn't want them to sit empty. It's in section 36, row 18. These are great seats, guys. So the first person that tweets at me that they want these tickets to see the game, they are yours. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Keep following the channel. We've got new content coming almost every single day. If you aren't subscribed, why? Please hit that subscribe button. You guys have a great night and go Gators.